Hello. I'm happy to hop in here and talk with you for a minute. Always am. Today, what I want to talk about is how do we prove progress with our homeschool child? It's a question we get all the time. How do you know what they know? Well, I want to share a few creative ways to demonstrate mastery or what a child has known, but what a child knows besides a test. Test is just one tool, it's one way to do it. So I want to share a few creative ways that have worked for me through the years. But first, let me tell you who I am. I'll just be short because this is about you. I'm Tina Robertson. I've homeschooled well over 20 years. My site is Tina's Dynamic Homeschool Plus. My Facebook page is How to Homeschool Easy, the letters. And my group is Homeschool Dynamics by Tina Robertson. I have some online courses for homeschoolers. I am the creator of the 7-step unique homeschool planner, mini lap books, unit studies. You can read more about me over there because I want to hop into telling you about gauging progress for your children. And I want you to have a chance to be able to post your questions too. First, let me tell you the story. Of course, it's one I cringed when someone had questioned my children. Why they think they can do that, I don't know. But one of our public school friends had asked my oldest at the time, who was only in 3rd grade, what were the capitals of the states. And of course, before I even get to say anything or give him that look, he's answering so quickly, states? What are states? I don't even know what capitals. What are you talking about? And of course, I just melted. I had no reason to. But here I'm thinking about what to say, and he pipes up, well, I don't know what states are. We've been studying about mummifying an apple in ancient Egypt. Do you know anything about that? And it was at that time I realized that not everyone is on the same course for learning, the same path. Of course, I have read all the books, but it's different when you read it and what actually happens to you or happens to your kids. I read all the books, but I wasn't that brave. Of course, it takes time to get courage too, because in the back of your head, you think, I'm gonna mess these kids up for life, but we don't. You're not going to, because I want to share how it worked for me. So what I realized, the important takeaway I had from that story was, we don't have to step in sync to a scope and sequence. If you think about it, bodies of knowledge are not separated into grade levels. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. It's not separated into grade levels. When we do a research on a topic, we just research until we're like, okay, that's enough. I think I know enough. Now, there are some subjects, like the skill subjects, that it's important to cover them in order. Math is one of them. Obviously, we need the 4 basic operations before a child goes on to higher math. So I'm not talking about that. There are subjects, but there are very few that have to be covered in a sequence. The rest of learning is wide open, which is why for the majority of my homeschooling journey, I chose unit studies because I feel unit studies is a mastery approach. It's not how I started. I started with workbooks and textbooks because I didn't know any better. I thought that's what learning was. Complete a textbook and all of a sudden then that proves our children are learning. It doesn't prove anything. It just proves you completed a workbook. It didn't prove mastery. So I had to come up with some ways through the years that my children could prove mastery or demonstration of what they were learning. Remembering that a test or a review is just one tool. And I did use it because I wanted my kids to know how to take a test. Tests are part of life, but it's not all of life. And so I wanted my children to be able to know when they research something, how do they know it? It's kind of like part research skills, part way of gauging a child's progress. So some things we did when they were younger, in the younger years, is I would have a small audience for them. And of course, the audience consisted of my mom and dad, grandparents, maybe a few cousins, not a real big audience, but some audience that would appreciate them and love them when they're young. And then my kids could show and explain what they were learning. And I was shocked at the information that they absorbed. Even though we studied it and I had written some worksheets and some lap books, it wasn't all that they knew. By having an open-ended discussion where they could just pour out from their heart and their mind what they wanted others to know, I was shocked. And then, of course, we had the times also when I asked them to explain what they did in this lap book or this report or what this drawing was about that they couldn't explain very much what it was. So then I knew, okay, they didn't pay attention very much on that subject. So that was the way that I would do review. It was a natural way of learning, and it was a natural way of them repeating back what they knew and what they didn't know, what they weren't saying, where I knew that I had to zero in on these certain topics or these certain skills. In addition, I also formed a co-op. I had a co-op of probably about 100 or more families. It was a huge co-op that I had. And we would get together and we would have talent shows, or we would have a time when the kids would explain what it was that they researched about. One of our themes, one year I remember, was about geography. We would take different subjects and each family would choose a country. And so we would have them get up in front of others and speak. Now, in your house, you may have some, like I have, scaredy cats. And I had some like that didn't want to get up and speak in front of others. And I made him do it. There's some things that children don't like doing. Now, I'm not talking about he doesn't have a special needs, and I'm not saying force children that have anxiety level already from public school. See, everyone's circumstance is different. I have, my two kids never went to public school. My oldest only went to part of kindergarten before I took him out and realized he was already ahead. So they didn't have any of the anxieties from public school, but they had the fears of speaking in front of someone. But I wanted them to be challenged. I wanted them to conquer their fears, because when they conquer their fears, it instills confidence in them. And sometimes I remember thinking, am I really being too hard of a parent? Am I being, overbearing about this, making him do it when he really doesn't want to? But now that he's an adult and we talk about it and we look back, it was the right thing to do, because it made him confident. It made him love people. It gave him the ability he needs in his life right now. We even just talked about this subject the other day. He said, Mom, if you hadn't made me get up and speak in front of those people, or if you hadn't made me do those music recitals that I didn't want to go to because there was an audience, I don't know if I would be like I am today. So sometimes our children need to be in an uncomfortable situation. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have a little of that anxiety. That's normal. So I'm not talking about when kids have been bullied. You know if your child can do that or not. If they're just scared versus they've been berated at public school. It makes me think about this example we studied one time, and this is what I told my boys when they were young. We studied about how diamonds were formed. Intense heat and intense pressure. And I think about that example all the time when I think about my kids. They did get some heat from me and they did get some pressure from me. But it was balanced and it wasn't all the time. It wasn't constant. But I let them have time to prep for it, to prepare, so that when they got up and spoke in front of an audience, no matter how big or how small, that they were ready. And then, of course, their faces just beamed and the confidence was instilled. And on top of that, it enforced mastery of what they were learning. That particular year, we were doing a geography around the world. They learned a lot about world geography. we were doing world geography, not just the states. At that time, they already had learned the states, but this time, see, it happened. They learned the states. But then as they grew older, they also did other things. They had discussions with other teens. Now, my sons had also been part of a book club when they were younger. That didn't work out so well, but it was just because we didn't find the right peeps. As I've homeschooled longer, I've realized you have to find the right peeps. You can even do online book clubs. It kind of gives kids a chance to go back and forth about their views and feel comfortable when someone else doesn't have their view. They can show them respect and know how to talk back to them and to entertain their idea. But it also proves mastery. Okay, they read the book, they have a reason for reading the book, and they can explain back in their words. These things you can't reduce to a test. These things you can't reduce to a piece of paper. They need the wide open platform to be able to explain what they know. So that was another thing that I did. So we had the audiences small. We started off small. We did contests. We lived in many rural areas, and I know the fair was a huge thing in our area. And I know some homeschoolers in our area, they would do canning, they do recipes, drawing, 4-H. My sons were part of 4-H. I made sure there were opportunities for them to be able to demonstrate and to explain what they were learning. It was a much better way to show what they were learning. Now, as they grew older, also this turned into PowerPoint, because then I wanted them to learn some technology. They could have a PowerPoint and then they would show to the family, look what I did. And as they're talking and explaining, they've learned the technology, PowerPoint, and the material. Some teens love to have a YouTube channel. Of course, there's things you can do that are private. Some teens that love to write have a private blog. These are all ways to prove mastery or that your child has it. They can shine. It instills confidence, and also it instills a lifelong problem-solving skill set. Because there's no way that I was ever able to teach my kids everything I wanted them to know. It just didn't happen. It's not reasonable. But what I focused on was teaching them how to find everything they wanted to know, giving them the skills, the confidence. Then from there, they could engage their progress, because here's the thing, I'm not going to be with them their whole life. They have to realize, I don't know enough about this topic. I need to go research this. We also did lap books. I am a huge lover of lap books. It's not just for young children. Lap books are hands-on tools, and I made my kids do them all the way to high school, because I felt like creativity and being able to put in a nutshell the information you want someone to learn is an important skill. I mean, just face it, everyone is busy these days. Everyone's busy. And you need to be able to get to your point quickly, show your subject you're talking about, and have other people see it and visualize it in a creative way and explain it to them. If they can't explain what they learned in the lap book back to me, then I know that they didn't know it. So we don't always have to do a book report. Everything doesn't always have to be reduced to writing. And sometimes, yes, things were reduced to writing. Also, when my sons struggled with writing, I had them record into a tape recorder, record what they know, listen to themselves talk back. How do they sound? Of course, they were tickled over that. They love listening to themselves talk. How do you sound? Do you sound like you're a master of this material? Does it sound like you know what you're talking about? See, these were other creative ways I did from the time they were young all the way to high school, and including tests. So PowerPoints, blogs, 4-H, recitals, co-ops. If you're not part of a co-op, create an audience. Give your child time to shine and time to show what he's learned. And this way he becomes master of the material that he's learning. So there's many creative ways. I can list some more that I have too down here in the post, but I just wanted to share a few of those ways that besides tests, or it doesn't always have to be reduced to writing for your children to master it. Okay, good talking to you. Talk to you later. Bye.